There are moments when football is far more than a game. And as they prepare to take on Spain in the finals of the Euros, England's players will realise they're on the cusp of something quite remarkable. After a somewhat shaky start, Gareth Southgate's men beat Switzerland on penalties in the quarter-finals and then romped to victory over the Netherlands in the semis. And as they've gained in confidence over the tournament, so too have the fans.
It's coming home. It's coming home. It's finally coming home. Confident, very confident. Spain doesn't know what's coming. Let's go, England!
Wasn't that hopeful early on, but we've got better and better, haven't we? And that performance today, wow, that was a great performance.
Hundreds of thousands will be in Germany for the final. Millions more will be glued to the telly back home. For once, England's support is daring to dream rather than hoping to wake from yet another nightmare. And as for Southgate, much maligned in the early stages of the tournament, well, he's once again close to national treasure status.
Well, definitely I took the job to try to help English football improve. I know what it would mean not only to general public in England, but particularly to people involved in English football, from those that develop young players to those that run clubs to every level of the game, really. I think we've improved the credibility of English football in how it's perceived around the world, but ultimately until you win that trophy, then there will always be those questions both abroad and at home about what we've done.
Later, we are going to take a closer look at Southgate's use of psychology in his march to the final. But we begin with our sports correspondent, Rob Harris, joining us from close to the team hotel in Germany. Rob, just describe the mood there for us.
Well, we've been travelling around Germany now for over a month, and there have been huge numbers of England fans packing into town squares. You see the flags festooned around the squares, often with the names of their clubs, so a lot of lower league clubs in particular, and packing out the stadiums, many in their thousands, and so many coming over just to be experiencing it, because this really has been the first tournament since Euro 2016 when England fans have been able to travel in big numbers. So we have seen absolutely masses of England fans taking over squares, and it has largely been peaceful as well. Very few instances for the police to have to deal with, and now many finding their way anyway to get to Germany, whether by air or by road. So I think this is the moment everyone trying to descend on Berlin if they can do. When you've produced such comebacks, late moments of drama, it really does lift the mood. To think England are in a final, it doesn't happen that often for the men's team at all, only the third time in their history.
There is now, I would say, a bit of an air of expectation around this Southgate side, because they've finally started to play like an actual team.
Yeah, and Gareth Southgate always tempers that with not wanting to sound like England are entitled to sort of success and entitled to be title winners, despite all of the talent that is at his disposal. But it's that talent that hasn't been clicking and performing that often. We did, though, see it in the first half of the semi-final against the Netherlands. They were rampant in attack, particularly Phil Foden, as the fans think, was on fire. He had so many chances, really showing what he's done for Manchester City so often. He really did deserve a goal, but couldn't manage it. And that was the attacking threat that Gareth Southgate had been hoping to see from his team for so long at this tournament, which just wasn't coming off at all.
Still, as we head into the weekend of the final, it is, as Alex Ferguson would describe it, squeaky bum time a little bit, because, as you've alluded to, the England team have had in the past those oh-so-nears as immortalised in the song, and one does leap to mind. 1996, England versus Germany, and Gareth Southgate played a role in that one.
He did. Then playing for England when it went through to penalties in that semi-final at Wembley against the Germans, and Gareth Southgate stepping up, final spot kick, and missing, and ultimately costing England the chance to reach the final. Many more times down the line since then, Gareth Southgate, though, has penalty shootout success, including at the World Cup in 2018. So that is something that has been transformed. Certainly he'll be hoping so, with all 5 flawless spot kicks in that quarter-final victory over Switzerland.
An awful lot of talk then at this competition about the style, the management, the coaching style of Gareth Southgate and the way in which he has deployed sports psychology, perhaps in a fashion that other England managers in the past might not have done. Just in terms of his approach to the game, is Gareth Southgate truly as singular as some of the coverage in the English press might lead you to believe? Or are there other managers out there doing what he's doing?
It's interesting you reference that use of psychologists, and for some time they were almost some sort of thing that no one wanted to publicly talk about. After Glenn Hoddle took a faith healer to tournaments, Eileen Drew, this was many years ago, in the 1990s, and that became a huge issue at the time. I think it made everyone wary of talking about the use of psychologists, but in more recent years, they've become a key component of squads. But they can make a difference to calm things around the squad, to help you deal with those hugely pressurised moments, even perhaps dealing with us in the media as well, when, you know, youngsters even like Jude Bellingham are put right in front of a room of media, remembering that he's someone still only young as well. And the way we've seen the mindset change in the squad is perhaps where you do need that sort of coaching that is beyond just on-field tactics too.
Yeah, and I think back to the quarters in the game against Switzerland, and the way in which England actually did rather well at penalties. I mean, for those who didn't watch that game or only caught the highlights, just walk us through the way in which England approached that set of penalties, because it was quite a remarkable thing to watch at a distance.
Yeah, if we first all remember, it was Bukayo Saka's goal from the outside the area that saved things, equalising in the 80th minute to ensure the game even went into extra time. Then Harry Kane came off in extra time, all-time top scorer for England's men, the captain, the talisman. He had actually just fallen into Gareth Southgate. And you think, how can England do it without Harry Kane? Almost someone banked on for goals. But the strength of the mindset they showed and the resolve was incredible. And particularly, you know, Bukayo Saka, who would have every reason not to take a penalty, given the racist abuse he was subjected to after missing in the last Euros final in 2021. Abused just for trying to help his country in his place of work on the pitch. But certainly he showed that mental resolve. He wanted to take one, and he managed to bury it, and what a series of penalties. And obviously many now talking about Ivan Toney's no-look kick as well. That's been parodied as well by the US Embassy in London.
That was just showing off.
Yeah, I've got to say, of all the things I would fear, I think taking a penalty in a shootout would be one of the things I would absolutely dread, knowing how much pressure was on you to deliver in that moment. And perhaps even now over the years, Gareth Southgate is no longer facing continuous questions about his own record, but that was certainly something I think he faced a lot as he was building up to his first tournament in 2018, knowing that he had some unfinished business from Euro 96, given the shootout against Germany.
Thanks, Rob. When we return, we will pick up that discussion on the beautiful games, mind games. Back soon. Welcome back. Now, much has been made of Gareth Southgate's managerial style, certainly when contrasted with some of the bruisers that have filled the role before. There has been a sensitivity displayed that certainly isn't characteristic of the role of international manager.
We all want to be loved, right? So when you're doing something for your country and you're a proud Englishman, when you don't feel that back and when all you read is criticism, it's hard. So, to be able to celebrate a second final is very, very special.
Michael Caulfield is a sports psychologist who's worked with Southgate in the past. First things first, Gareth Southgate. That guy that I see on the television, all cool, calm and collected, in those press conferences, batting away the questions with seeming ease. Is that really Gareth Southgate?
Yes, it is. I think what we've seen the last 7 years, and what we're seeing this week in particular, again, he's a remarkably calm, methodical, thoughtful, smart person. And he also knows that, and he's told me this over the years, that when he was a player, and I've yet to meet one player in my 20 years nearly in football who enjoys someone on the touchline jumping up and down, screaming, directing traffic, telling them how to pass the ball, when to pass the ball, where to pass the ball. So he's realised that it might look good to a few people in the crowd on TV, but that does not help the team. So I think calmness and thoughtful and smart are three of his many qualities.
And that you would say, and certainly marks him out from a lot of the other managers that we see at this level of competition.
I think he's very confident and comfortable in who he is and how he does it. And he also knows that at some point it's going to end. So I also think he's doing it in his way as himself rather than what he thinks might get a populist vote online.
Is he someone who struggles with the pressure of the job? You don't cease your time as England manager under anything other than a big dark cloud in the main. So far. But I wonder when every time this team gets to this stage of a competition, the singing begins, it's coming home, the expectation often outweighs the likely outcome. On this occasion, I would argue the expectations pitched exactly where it should be. England are in the Euros final and are the number one team.
Yeah, I think Spain will probably be the favourites come Sunday. But your question is he calm? And the answer to a question is yes, he is. And that's a great strength from a leader. Mm-hmm. On the back of last week's election results here in the UK, Gareth has now seen off, if you like, 5 prime ministers in his time as England head coach. And I think this was Harry Redknapp's phrase, but I love it. He is the Prime Minister of football. He governs football.
You'll have to explain that a little.
Why is the Prime Minister of football? Because he's the figurehead. Because I believe that the television audience for this Sunday is an estimated 30 million. Nothing will beat that this year in the UK. It's normally a tie between a royal event and England playing football. And he's the figurehead of English football. And to hold that job for 7 years, under the pressure, under the scrutiny, and everything is monitored and watched, and how is he and what's he wearing? And in that 7 years now, Neil, he's barely put a foot wrong.
In terms, though, of the team, he has quite clearly remoulded the entire England setup around the principles that he applies to football. And at the heart of that, I would argue, would be sports psychology and a very keen interest in it. I mean, we were talking before we started recording. I mean, he's had an interest in this area for a lot longer than his tenure as England manager.
Oh, he's often commented, but he thought maybe his psychology or the way he approached things may have held him slightly back as a player. Now, you and I have not played 56 times for our country, captained our country in the 3 clubs you played for, and managed the country you wanted to lead. So, again, spot the pattern. Club captain at every single club he played for, captain of his country, and now the head coach of his country. So I don't think I think it's a harsh criticism, but he believes it has such an effect on people under the greatest pressure. He pays such attention to the mood, the emotion, the psychological well-being of his players and staff.
But when it comes to being literally in the England changing room, in the England team hotel, in all the sessions, the preparatory sessions that led up to this World Cup, how does an individual like Southgate persuade them that this is the tactics are correct, to feel positive about the team and indeed about their teammates, to play as a team?
That can only come from within. So for him to understand all the emotions that go into the makeup of a young footballer in the most scrutinised environment of all, and understand how they all operate. Will he always get it right? The answer is no. But he invests so much time and energy in getting to know people, understanding them. And I've noticed in a lot of the clips we've seen coming out of the training camp, he lets the coaches coach, because he thinks, what's the point of having coaches that don't coach? You'll often see him just walking around the side of the pitch, talking to players, just checking them out to see where they are, how they are, all the time.
That speaks to an awful lot of confidence in the backroom staff.
Huge amount. Yeah. But he's got an awful lot of confidence in his backroom staff, mainly because he appointed them. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's not the greatest technician for the job, it's the best person for the job and for the environment, because also they're having the time of their lives, I hope, in Germany, but they'll be there for the best part of 6.5 weeks come the end of it. And to put a young man in their 20s, in the main, in a hotel for 6.5 weeks, mainly with people you're trying to compete with and against, that takes a lot of managing. Given
that there is a degree of art to this as much as science, what then does Southgate and his team, the hand-picked team, need to do all the way up to kick-off?
I would hope not too much. You can say and do far too much. Mm-hmm. And what I've learned in a lifetime of sport, you can give too much information, you can say too much, and then you come across as, have you seen the state of him? We can't keep quiet. And he's the one showing the anxiety and the fear and the nerves and all that goes with it. So I suspect they'll keep the week very level. And also, they've only got 2 days. So there's not too much time to over-prepare, overthink and over-inform between now and Sunday evening.
Well, we don't know what the end result will be. I know what you hope it will be. But But do you think, win, lose or draw, do you think that Gareth Southgate has changed the way that England will be coached, will be managed, from now on?
I think that badge, the Three Lions badge, and the English flag of the Cross of St George now represents something entirely different than it did a decade ago.
On this occasion, I suspect that you will get a few people who would not necessarily usually consider themselves England fans tuning in and if not wholeheartedly cheering them on, certainly not wishing them ill. But I just wonder if we can conclude. I wonder if Gareth Southgate ever talked to you about this, but you rewind to 1996 and that missed penalty against Germany. I mean, I wonder to what extent that weighed on him, but whether or not, in any sense, winning the finals of the Euros against Spain might just exercise the ghost a little bit, or was that gone a long time ago?
I suspect that has gone a long time ago. I'm sure there's a bit of him that just wished that ball had slotted in the bottom right-hand corner, and then it wouldn't be It's Coming Home all over again. It's so long ago now. It has no real relevance to this coming Sunday. And I remember when he got a job with England at under-21s, the under-21s had no idea who he was.
That's amazing, isn't it?
No idea who he was.
Yeah.
But what he's able to do is, I think he's been able, in his time as the England head coach, is able to free them up a bit. That whatever happens to you, you'll be all right. But at the time when you're young, you don't know that. And a big driver in all of us is the fear of embarrassment and humiliation.
100%. Bearing in mind just your remarks just then about not wishing to be embarrassed, give me a prediction. What's the scoreline?
I'm not a pundit. I'm not Gary Neville. I'm not Gary
I've got
Neville.
to ask. You're an England fan.
My favourite phrase in football, I've worked with so many brilliant people in football, and one of them actually worked with Gareth years ago at Middlesbrough, an old coach, Steve Harrison, he coached England as well, was, there's always a twist, Michael, there's always a twist. And Spain are red-hot favourites because they've played 6, won 6, looked amazing. Some of the world's greatest young players, as have we. But I hate to tell you this, Neil, there's always a twist.
On that
There's
bombshell.
always a twist.
Michael Caulfield, pleasure to talk to you, and indeed, I really do hope there is a twist this weekend, so best of luck.
Thank you.
Let's wrap things up with our man in Germany, Rob Harris. Rob, win or lose? I mean, what do we think comes next for Gareth Southgate?
I think the complexion would have been very different if England had, say, lost to Slovakia, even Switzerland, because at that point the bonds with the fans were completely fraying. He'd spoken of his frustration with some of the criticism from pundits and the ex-players, and even the plastic beer glasses being thrown at him at the group stage games. It does now change the dynamic, I think, reaching a final. The fact they beat the Netherlands, who are ranked so close to them in the world rankings. Whatever happens against Spain, they are one of the best teams in the world. So the question is, it's clear the FA does want to keep Gareth Southgate, I would say. He's delivered so much success to them, so much consistency, transformed the whole mindset and operation around the England teams. So it does come down to whether it is Gareth Southgate's decision. He has a contract right the way through to the end of the year. If England were to win on Sunday, does he want to go out on the high, knowing he has reached the pinnacle that no English men's manager has done with a trophy since Sir Alf Ramsey in 1966? Does he see that this young group of players has so much in them that he wants to take on a third World Cup in 2026 in North America?
And do you know what, Rob? Allow me just to park the Scottish thing just for 1 second. This is a huge event, not just for Gareth Southgate, not just for the players on the pitch, the people on the bench, the backroom team, not even for the fans that are there in Germany. It's a huge moment for the entire country. There are precious few things in this world that bring people together in the way that sport and in particular football does. Win or lose, this is a moment for England to come together, to cheer on the sides, keep fingers crossed. And hey, I can't believe I'm about to say this, Rob, but do you know what? In a couple of days' time, it might actually be coming home.
I was going to say, we've gone through the entire recording without using that phrase. Yeah, it might be incredible. But I'm going to say, yeah, these are the moments that define the nation's history. Football brings the nation together like no other sport can. If England were to win on Sunday, it would be one of those key moments in the entire history of the nation of success, and provide those sort of uplifting moments that everyone can enjoy, particularly in this summer without too much sun.
With hand on heart, best of luck this weekend, and many thanks, Rob. We'll speak again soon. And that's your lot for this edition of The Daily. We will be back on Monday, where I hope we'll be bringing you news of a famous victory. Come on, England.